Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our in-depth look at the newly unveiled 2022 Subaru BRZ. What we're going to do is just pick up where we left off in part 1, continue looking at some of these images from their photo gallery, and then we'll take a closer look at some of the information provided by Subaru, talk a little bit about the specifications of the car, and then we'll get into some final thoughts about the car.
Another look at these headlights. You can see it's got this sort of continuation of what we called the boomerang LED lighting on around the edge of the front headlight, and then what looks like a projector headlamp. Over here you have the turn signal. Both of them are LEDs, I believe. It's a very modern and efficient looking design. I like them a lot. Another look at those headlights. It's a nice design. I can see up here. Oop, let's go back. It says BRZ up there in the upper corner of the headlight, which I'm not sure if they did that with the LED lamps that they added in the 20. I don't know if it's the 2017 and up models. A look at the back. The BRZ badge looks like it hasn't really changed. It's probably the same part. More of the tail light, which again looks like it has LEDs as well. You've got LEDs for the backup lights, probably LEDs throughout the tail light. There's a side look at the tail light. It looks nice and aggressive from this angle, very triangular. And you can see the profile of this rear spoiler and deck lid. It is interesting though that there's a cut line here. I wonder if that means that the spoiler piece is actually separate from the trunk lid. Looks like it could be. I don't know if that means you could end up removing this piece and changing it out to a different spoiler, or some sort of gurney flap or lifted wing, something like that. Then you could just swap it out maybe. Yeah, there's another closer look at how it's a seemingly separate piece from the rest of the trunk lid. And a closer look at the wheel and tire. This one looks like it's the back. And yeah, sure enough, says Michelin Pilot Sport 4. Still a 5-lug wheel. I think some people had speculated that maybe they would move to a 5x1 14.3 bolt pattern, but I thought that was unlikely, and I didn't see anything in the notes about that. So I'm guessing that they're retaining the same bolt pattern 5x100. Okay, I think we've probably looked at enough of these exterior shots for now. Nice to see it in blue, which is of course my favorite color. But let's kind of skip ahead and see if we can see some photos of the interior. I don't want to spend all day dwelling just on how it looks on the outside. Oh, nice. A comparison against the two-door WRX STI. The trunk does not look all that different from the trunk we know. Oh, there's a under the hood shot. D4S boxer. Slightly different intake manifold, looks like to me. But overall, this is I think called the FA24 motor. But it looks pretty similar in terms of setup to what we had with the FA20 motor in the previous generation. Still got the oil filter up front and on top. so that's great. Makes for easy oil changes. You've got all these various fluid um, filler caps, so you can check on things, top things off, put in the oil. Don't see anything dramatically different here. Different angle. Ah, here we go. The interior. The seats look pretty nice. You've got this kind of suede looking material, maybe some leather on the sides. Overall looks the same in terms of design. Maybe the bolsters up here are a little bit different. And of course you've got these inserts with a little splash of extra red. You got this red stitching going on. I don't know how I feel about too much red stitching, but it does give a little bit of contrast to the interior. The interior looks similar in overall layout, but notice the air vents here for the HVAC are different. Well, I guess the side vents were circular, but this looks like it's got more of a pod kind of look to it. Um, Not bad. Kind of looks like a speaker though from this angle. Close up of the seats, showing sort of the suede or Alcantara look on these seats. The back seat, which probably almost no one cares about. Okay, the dashboard. Yeah, it definitely looks sort of more squarish up here. You don't have that sort of plasticky plate filling up this area anymore. The car stereo looks like it has a larger touchscreen than before. Looks like it has all the usual things, multimedia, phone function, maybe navigation. But this whole area here looks just more rectangular. I don't know how else to say it. The climate controls look a little bit different. The knobs, these buttons over here, I think are somewhat of a carryover from the previous limited model. You got the push button start, steering wheels, got the controls on it, which were available also in the previous model. Got the nice shiny pedals as before. Doesn't look too different. Hopefully we'll get to another photo of the instrumentation panel. A better look at the vents. It's kind of got this star look to them, which I don't think was in the previous model. Looking at the center console and the shift knob. Shift knob looks like it's slightly different in design, or at least in style, but pretty much the same shape. Maybe they just changed the shift pattern or the piece that displays the shift pattern a little bit. Still got the shift boot with the red stitching on it. In the center console, you've got these buttons, which it's a little hard to see what everything does, but I'm guessing there's, sport mode and traction control off. And then over here probably are the seat warmers for the higher model. Close up with the steering wheel. You can see a little bit of the instrument panel here. Looks like a much bigger, more pronounced display of your speed right in the center of the tachometer, which is nice. Gives it a nice modern look. a real close-up look at the steering wheel controls. If you care about that, you can control your phone and your stereo from the steering wheel without taking your hands off the wheel. This side looks like the navigation buttons for the instrument panel. And you got a button there for voice control. Another closer look at the climate control and the start-stop button for the engine. You got AC and max AC. Another photo of climate control with everything lit up. You can see you've got dual climate control in case your passenger wants to be at 75 while you're at 70. You don't have to fight over that. Shift knob, parking brake. No major differences here. Again, you can see these buttons here. Yep, looks like you've got traction control off and what looks like race mode. Different angle of the same thing. And the automatic. We don't care about that. Close-up look at these buttons again. Sure enough, this is the track or race mode that turns off traction control completely. The shift knob. The pedals. Yep, looks pretty much the same as before. Here we go. The instrument panel. You can see the tachometer. It's got an interesting look to it. Yeah, you've got this sort of colorful indicator around the outside with the red line indicated here. Looks like red line is at about the same place that it was before. Maybe 7,500, 7,600 RPM. Although I thought I had read somewhere that the 2.4 liter redlined at 7,000 RPM. So we'll have to double check that as well. But what's interesting is, instead of a traditional looking needle, you've got what looks like this kind of sweeping band that will go around the tachometer outside of the numbers instead of inside like a traditional tachometer needle. We'll have to see how that plays out in real life, how it looks. But it's kind of cool. You're going to see this kind of sweeping band of white, I'm guessing, that goes all the way up here. And then I wonder if when you hit red line, is it going to blink or flash in red to tell you to upshift or something like that. Over here, looks like you've got some of the same displays that you had in the 2017 electronic display. Battery voltage, water temperature, odometer. And over here, fuel gauge, temperature. Actually, no, I'm sorry, I was wrong. This is oil temperature, but that was, I believe, shown in the 2017 model instrument panel as well. Over here is coolant temperature, and then external temperature, clock, fuel gauge. And oh, look at this. This is interesting. Looks like maybe when you switch over to the track mode, it displays a different type of tachometer. You've got this kind of S2000 style side-to-side rev counter. And again, showing the red line at about 7,500. So I'll have to cross-check that against what people are saying about the red line for this 2.4 liter engine. It'd be fantastic if it can still rev up to 7,500, just like the old model. Be interested in seeing a dyno plot of the new engine as well. See if the torque dip has been removed completely, or if it's still kind of there, like in the previous models, the infamous torque dip that everyone talks about, and in fact even is shown on the instrument panel of the 2017 to 2020 models. We'll see if they have a photo of that in this gallery. Oh, no, I guess that's it. All right. It looks like the Subaru website is now up, so we're able to take a look at the official site, and they've got the picture of the new BRZ up. And let's just kind of scroll through this and look at some of the specs and details. Scrolling through, there's a video over here. Let's not look at that just yet, but let's just kind of scroll through the details. Sports car purity. Saying completely redesigned and re-engineered for more horsepower, torque, and acceleration, and better handling, and even more rear-wheel drive thrills. Sure, I believe it. Okay, so some of the details here: 2.4 liter direct injection Subaru Boxer engine. That's not a surprise. That's what we expected. The disappointment, I think, is that it's not a turbo. It's naturally aspirated, but it's making a very adequate amount of power. 228 horsepower and 15% more torque, 184 pound-feet. So, you know, I think that's pretty impressive power to weight ratio. In fact, let me show you something. What I've put together is a table listing the power to weight ratio for a bunch of popular sports cars. And I call this the Mo Power table. And up here at top, I've got the MR2 Spider, fairly lightweight car. In fact, it's hard to find any sports cars that are more lightweight than the MR2, but not a whole lot of power. So 138 horsepower nets you a fairly low power to weight ratio in the scheme of things when you compare it against other more well-known sports cars. I've also got the second generation MR2 Turbo, the SW20, which makes 200 horsepower, a bit more weight, but the power to weight ratio is more favorable, and so it accelerates a little more quickly. Then I've also got as a reference the 1993 Super Turbo. That's the 2JZ powered 6-cylinder inline 6 turbo. Makes 320 horsepower, and so as you can see, very good power to weight ratio. And so I figured I'd have those in here as something that you can compare cars with when we're looking at the current model BRZ as well as the new BRZ that's just been announced. And also thrown in here the Mazda Miata, since that is, I think, the primary competitor to the BRZ. And so you can see, you know, they're all fairly close in terms of figures, but the new BRZ definitely has an advantage with the additional power that's been added from the new motor, as well as trying to keep the weight down. Subaru reports that their estimated weight is going to be 2,815 pounds for the most lightweight trim, which would be the premium trim of the BRZ. And so you can see that it handily outperforms the Miata in its current form, as well as the previous BRZ model. And just proceeding further down the list, I've got a few more higher powered cars that are, I figure, something to look at as comparables, just to give you a frame of reference. So I've got the 4-cylinder turbo Toyota Supra, which makes 255 horsepower but has considerably more weight. And so you can see that the power to weight ratio is actually pretty similar to that of the newly announced BRZ. And so I think they're going to be somewhat comparable in terms of performance, which maybe isn't such great news for Toyota. In fact, I'm a little surprised that they allowed this to happen, given that they're partnering with Subaru and going to presumably have a Toyota 86 on offer as well, and we'll be waiting to see any news about that soon. But it's a little bit surprising to see that the four-cylinder Supra is actually kind of being shown up by the Subaru BRZ, and so presumably would also be by the Toyota 86 if they end up putting one out. Kind of cannibalizing into the sales of the Supra, and it makes you think, well, that might not be such a great bargain after all if you're paying, upwards of $40,000 for this four-cylinder Supra when you can get the same or similar performance coming out of the Toyota 86 or the BRZ. A few other cars I've got here on the list, the Porsche Cayman, and also my own BRZ with the Jackson Racing supercharger installed. Both of those net about 300 horsepower, and fairly good performers. Not the fastest cars out there, but quite respectable. And then sort of at the bottom of the list, I've got the six-cylinder Toyota Supra, the A90, with its 3-liter turbo. And that, of course, makes 382 horsepower, which is a considerable amount. And by all accounts, a very fantastic, very fast car that just pulls like crazy. And as you can see on this list, I've got it here with the highest power to weight ratio of this particular selected list. So that just kind of gives you a sense of comparison between what we're looking at today, the newly announced BRZ, and some of these other popular sports cars, both from the past and from the current market. And so, yeah, I figured it would be kind of interesting to run through these numbers and take a look at them for the sake of comparison. Okay, scrolling along here. Same thing, near perfect weight distribution from front to back and light curb weight. Retuned track tested suspension. Yeah, it looks like it's the same stuff. McPherson struts in front, multi-link rear suspension. So no real change there. Probably just some fine tuning. Reinforcing the suspension mounting points. Okay, that's good. Some of the statistics that you would expect with any new model. Re-engineered for lighter weight, even lower center of gravity, 50% increased rigidity, 60% increased front lateral rigidity. So yeah, some impressive numbers there. And okay, we anticipated that there would be some new safety features. So the car is going to come with eyesight, driver assist, with automatic pre-collision braking and adaptive cruise control. That's all pretty nice. I have some of that stuff in my wife's car, the Mazda CX-5, and it's good stuff. I definitely encourage more safety features like that don't really have too much of a downside. It's going to make for safer drives, safer for everybody. Enhanced roadside assistance, automatic collision notification. Okay. Hopefully that's not something that will require a subscription, but maybe it'll come for free for the first 3 years or something like that. Okay, upgraded wheels, tires, and brakes. Yeah, so 18-inch wheels. I think that's optional on the limited model. And Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires. So that's slightly better tires, stickier tires. And the braking system has been revised and upgraded. Okay, no real details there, but maybe it's got slightly bigger rotors or slightly better brake pads, something like that. And multimedia, they've definitely upgraded the car stereo. I think I read in the Car and Driver article that the screen size is larger than the previous model. So that's very nice. It's got navigation, touchscreen, 8-inch. It's got an 8-inch touchscreen. Looking at the digital instrument cluster, configurable, fully digital instrument cluster with a central TAC and integrated G-force meter. Okay. And adaptive sport and track modes. Nice. That's what we were looking at before with the photo, showing that there was a sort of left to right bar, kind of a S2000 style tachometer that could be really useful on the track. And to be expected, you've got the 6-speed manual as before, and an automatic as an option with paddle shifters. Okay, I guess that's it in terms of the main page. We can scroll back up here and scroll through some of these images. There's some videos, some of the same photos that we've already seen. Okay, I'm going to play a little bit of the video clip from the Subaru website. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I'll include a link below. Purity. Okay, yeah, very nice. I think that was the proper dose of excitement and hype, just showing off the new looks and the new sounds of the BRZ, and yeah, it's kind of got me pumped up. I'm more excited after seeing the car in motion.
All right, final thoughts about the new 2022 Subaru BRZ. The way I see it, there are 3 possible scenarios for people who might buy the new BRZ. Number 1, someone who doesn't own a BRZ or 86 yet and is looking for a small, affordable sports car, something that's fun, easy to own and operate, kind of my first sports car, if you will. Do they want a new BRZ, or maybe they can get a better deal on a 2020 BRZ, or even pick up a used one for the best bargain. So that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is someone who already owns a BRZ in stock form or close to stock form, not heavily modified. Is the new BRZ enough of an upgrade to justify trading in your BRZ or selling it off in order to get the new one and get some of these new features, the additional power? So that's a very good question. And scenario number 3, that's the bucket that I fall into, and that's someone who owns a highly modified BRZ, one that has power modifications, makes a lot more power than a stock BRZ. We've got suspension upgrades, maybe some brake and aero upgrades for some of you. You know, somebody who's really put a lot of time and money and resources into building a performance car. And so the question would be, you know, you've already poured a considerable amount of money into your build. Is the 2022 BRZ worthy to be a clean slate, to make you basically set all of that aside and start over with a brand new project? And so let's answer those in turn. We'll go back to scenario number one. I think it is a very desirable choice at this point. I think the new BRZ is highly competitive in the market. If the price stays close to what they predict it to be, which is under $30,000, then you're competing against the Mazda Miata, which, as far as I know, doesn't have any additional power upgrades coming anytime soon. I think they upgraded their motor in the ND version 2 fairly recently. And, you know, it's a very respectable car. We looked at the power to weight ratio in my little table. They're both very good performers. But right now, with the new BRZ coming, it's going to be the leader in that regard. It's got better power to weight ratio. It's going to be a newer car with more features, more safety features, all of these things that somebody who's looking at buying a new car, I think it's a compelling package for someone who's looking to buy their first sports car. Now, scenario number two, someone who owns a stock BRZ, do they want to upgrade? That one's a more difficult question, I think. I think that the new BRZ has more power, but not a ton more power. You know, it's I think for a lot of the enthusiast community, it's going to be disappointing that the new BRZ doesn't come with a turbo. And it's not that the car needs one, but I think everyone just gets power hungry. And so the reality is that because it's naturally aspirated and it makes 228 horsepower, that is not an unattainable power level for anyone that has a current generation BRZ. You could add exhaust and headers. You could add some intake or switch over to E85. All of those things together will probably get you to about roughly 230 horsepower. So, you know, I think it's a much more difficult proposition to tell someone who already has one of these cars to say, okay, trade it in. You're going to want the newer model. I don't think that it's enough of a big difference performance-wise to justify doing that. And lastly, scenario number three. If you have a highly modified, more powerful BRZ or 86, I think you're going to be very hard-pressed to justify moving over into the new BRZ unless you're just completely bored with your project or your build and you just want to start over. I think that while the power and the torque coming from the 2.4 liter engine is attractive, and maybe it has more tuning potential, well, I'm not entirely sure about that just yet, but maybe, you know, in theory, you'd be able to tune this thing to make even more power in the future, and that could be promising. But for the time being, I would say, you know, if you're already making, like I am, you know, roughly 300 horsepower, there's not necessarily a compelling reason to go and upgrade to the newer BRZ. And, you know, you're going to play into some of these other factors like the styling. You know, do you care how the car looks? Do you like the way the new car looks? I personally feel like it's a step backwards a little bit. I actually think that the kooky or facelift version of the first generation BRZ looks better. I think that that one represents kind of the best looking style in terms of overall cohesiveness. I feel like the new BRZ style is a little disjointed. It feels like it's borrowing things from a bunch of different cars. The front end has some Porsche-like elements. The back, I think a lot of people are going to say it borrows from, Hondas or maybe Mercedes. And so I think it looks a little bit derivative. And with all the kind of angular style, and especially with that big side skirt or door sill area, that's just, I don't know, it's too aggressive for me in certain parts of the car, and then other parts of the car it's kind of plain looking. So I don't know, I'm not feeling it at the moment. Maybe with time I'll grow to love it, but right now it's kind of ranking, I'd say, third place, with number one being, like I said, the 2017 to 2020 models. Second place being the 2013 to 2016 models, and then this new generation BRZ getting the bronze. And so with that, I think that's all I can say for the time being. Hopefully we'll get some more details about pricing on the new BRZ, which Subaru has not released yet. Other than that, I think it's still a very exciting release. I think it's a great move for Subaru to sort of update and refresh the Subaru BRZ. And I think we're just, as enthusiasts, happy that a cheap, easy to drive sports car is still available on the market. As long as they continue pumping these cars out, as long as they keep making the Mazda Miata, I think there's still hope for the future in terms of car enthusiasts and sports cars. So I think that it's important for these manufacturers to keep making these things and keep offering us these options. Having choice is always a good thing. And I think it's a very compelling entry for someone who's looking for a sports car for the first time. Certainly in comparison to, say, the 2.0 turbo Supra, which makes more power, but also is much heavier. And if that's something that you're looking at, you might want to think about this new BRZ as well. I think it's a compelling package. And it might come down to style. I do think that the Supra is a better looking car at the moment, but it's also a lot more money, right? We're talking upwards of $40,000 for the 2-liter 4-cylinder Supra.
So in the end, I think the new BRZ represents what it always has: a good value with decent performance and a fun car to drive.
Okay, well, that's all I have for today. I think I've gone on long enough. Thank you, as always, for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, and take care, guys. Until next time.